Hey, Chris. Fuck you.
Nah.
How do you know what's good for me?
That's my opinion!
1, 2, 3. Hello everybody, my name is Cherish and welcome to an episode of Know Your Hunger. Today we will be reflecting on the 1996 film The Craft, ahead of the continuation of the film The Craft Legacy. Now, maybe like many, I'm not trying to see this film. Sometimes people need to know when to leave things alone, and this is how I feel about The Craft Legacy. Judging by it, it just looks like, big millennial throwback, but I feel like it will pale in comparison to the 1996 masterpiece, cult classic, I should say. When I first looked at the trailer, something told me to just think about The Craft, and I used to watch it a lot when I had to have been in my middle school years. Like when I was in middle school, going to high school, I used to watch that often because it would come on often, I think, on TBS. And mind you, judging by the content of the film, I did not have no business watching that, but I'm gonna nail down the coffin and make it worse. The film is a great film, great acting, great great premise, awesome soundtrack. The 90s was a great, era for rock music. Horror is used to explain the issues of the day. So I already know the plot, seeing it so many times to tell you what happened. So we start with the beginning with our heroine, Sarah. Her family has moved from San Diego to Los Angeles, and she is starting at a new school, St. Bernard's. What gets hazy here is that a homeless man comes with a snake, and she continues to see that homeless man once again while she is out with the girls. But rolling back, while she is at school, we get introduced to Nancy, Rochelle, and Bonnie, which are played by Fairuza Balk, Rachel True, and Screen Queen Neve Campbell, respectively. So we are introduced to them. The better term they use is the Bees of Eastwick. But we are introduced to him by scumbag Chris, and is told by Sarah not to go to them, but that leaves her more intrigued. So the girls are considered outcasts, not because they are rumored to be witches, but that Bonnie is insecure with her scars from an accident, Nancy's home life, and the fact that she is living in a trailer park makes her an outcast. And with Rochelle, she has to deal with racism, especially being the only black student on the swimming team from that witch, Laura.
Why are you doing this to me, Laura? Do you think you're funny?
You really want to know why?
Yes, I really want to know why.
Because I don't like Negroids. Sorry.
So they're outcasts in many ways. They look to this deity Manon because, according to them, Manon can make things better. To which Sarah replied, nothing makes everything better. So Bonnie catches Sarah levitating a pencil, which to them leads that they found their fourth member in their coven to complete and to start being more confident in their powers. So Sarah joins their coven. They start doing their spells and whatnot. They start to see their empowerment in different forms. First for Bonnie is that she finally gets those scars off from that accident. She don't know how to act. She out here showing her legs and arms off. Yeah, girl. Rochelle uses her empowerment and her craft to get back at Laura by that hair loss scene. And I'm not supposed to hype up witchcraft, but that's what her behind get. That's what Laura gets. Because if it wasn't going to be witchcraft, it was going to be something else. Okay? You do bad, you act nasty towards people, expect to have that nastiness to go back. You can't throw daggers if you can't take a splinter, people. So I don't mean to be mean, but that's what her behind get. And Sarah uses her craft to woo Chris. But the biggest comes with Nancy when she inadvertently uses her craft to end the life of her scumbag stepfather, not knowing that she and her mother were to receive $100,000 plus pension. Now, y'all may be thinking in 2019, watching this, that it may not be much. It's not high as heck as how the inflated prices are now. So that allows her to move up in status, not to be considered white trash, and for her and her mother to live a comfortable life. But then we see that, with their craft, that, that this coven of teenage girls are getting too big for their britches. Bonnie starts to become vain. Rochelle does kind of feel sorry for Laura losing her hair, but don't give a zero F's given. Let's just say it like that. And Nancy's, for most of all, is getting too big for her britches. So Sarah sees that as a threat, which finds the group to turn against her and to threaten her life. So it starts to get worse when Nancy uses her craft to turn to Sarah to woo Chris, because according to them, Chris tried to advance upon Sarah, but that may have been because of the spell that they put on Chris, and we'll talk about that with the themes. But anyway, so in that infamous scene where she's like, "You mean nothing to me," she uses her craft. She justifies her craft after getting back at Chris for being sleazy towards women and pretty much in his life. So because of that, Sarah is scared and whatnot. This leads to a showdown between Sarah and Nancy. So we see in the showdown, Sarah overturning on Nancy, and that causes Bonnie and Rochelle to lose their powers as well, because they weren't using their powers for good. Sarah's the only one with the powers, and that leaves Nancy to be institutionalized. So let's move on to the themes of the craft and why I think this resonates more with me. Now that I'm an adult, I went through high school. My high school experience could have been more worse, could have kind of been better, but it was okay. I didn't have to deal with what the people in the craft had to go through. I would have to say the first theme is that the power of the craft is to exaggerate the feeling of an outcast and high school experience. There are some people that are going to be popular, there are some people that's going to be in the middle, and there are some who are going to be deemed outcasts. And the funny thing is that, sometimes, being popular half the time does not mean as much in the real world, because we have bigger fish to fry in the real world. But it does kind of show in many ways. I'm going to tell you this. Like, if any teenagers watching this, it kind of do, because there's still going to be groups in adulthood. There's still going to be some type of popularity. Like, even on YouTube, any facet you go to, there's kind of still popularity. But it doesn't mean as much as it does in high school, in a confined space with up to 600 people. So we have, the feeling of being an outcast and wanting to be seen and wanting to be visible, and practicing the craft, practicing paganism allows Sarah, Bonnie, Rochelle, and Nancy to feel more empowered, to be seen, and to be popular. It gives Bonnie more confidence, especially after those scars are gone. It gives Rochelle, more chance to be zoned in with her other craft, which is swimming, and to not deal with bullying. It gives Nancy an empowerment to stand up for herself. It gives Nancy, and to a certain extent Sarah, empowerment to stand up towards, bossy, toxic men, including Chris and Nancy's stepfather. So we see by practicing for these young ladies, practicing paganism, practicing witchcraft, while it is seen to the world in this story, it is not seen as pretty wholesome, it's not a good thing, but to them it allows them an avenue to be seen, to be popular, to not go back to a powerless place. But it really means a lot for people like Nancy to use her power, her craft. Pretty much their craft is to be used for vengeance, to stand up between people who are being malicious, having malintent towards them. So that's where we see where, making things better before, them getting too big in their heads, big in their britches later on in the story. And another thing when I think about it now is that, yeah, they're going to a Catholic school where they have to attend mass and stuff, and they're surrounded by, Catholic iconography, but they don't feel that it must not be working for them, or else they will not turn to paganism and taking up the craft. So for them practicing the craft and looking up to Manu and whatnot, it allows them like this safe space. Sorry to say it allows them this safe space where other places like school, home are not allowing them to be. And so another thing that I want to talk about is the subplot of race in this film, especially with Rochelle. Rochelle will be the only black character in this film, obviously to deal with race. I would have to say, wouldn't you have to say that Catholic school and private school are neck and neck because they have to pay money? Private school, well, no. Catholic school, I know you have to pay money like every semester or whatnot. It alludes to the fact that you must have money or whatnot. So for Rochelle, not only going to a Catholic school where she appears to be one of the few students of color, but also being the only black student on the swimming team, of course she's going to stick out like a sore thumb, and that's going to cause maybe for more bullying, especially for Laura. So for Rochelle, using her craft is her way, like her justice of dealing with the racism that she puts up every day from her white peers, save for her friends. And so it just makes me think, like, just because there are black kids that go to Catholic school or private school, because they're quite similar, you have to pay money, right? But just because students of color are getting a better education at Catholic school or private school, that doesn't mean that they are not immune to the social ills, to the BS put forth by the world, by the mainstream society, and that entails bullying. Because I remember one of Russell Simmons and Kamara Lee's daughters, she got accepted to Harvard, but she had this video out where she was detailing like all the messy things that she had to go through, and all the messy things that she dealt with going to private school. And it just goes to show that, it doesn't hurt to give your children a better education. No offense to anybody, but it doesn't mean they still had to deal with more BS on top of their studies, and they're probably expected to just grin and bear it. So moving on to the next thing will be the misogyny in this film, in the craft. Now, yes, Breaking Miles' character is trash. Chris is trash. Nancy's stepfather is a whole grade level above in trash. So we see some misogyny in some levels. So the guys treat the group of girls with no respect at all. Call them names, the bees of Eastwick and whatnot. Just laugh and giggle every day. And it's like, it's kind of sad. It's expected of, high school boys. It's kind of expected of, like, high school boys to just trash on, their peers, female peers, and just think that they could do whatever they want with them. Because we are familiar with a scene that when Sarah denies being intimate with Chris, he spreads a rumor around the school that Sarah is a bad lay. Yes, that's 90s slang for you, lay. That Sarah is bad in bed and whatnot, and it sucks because, like, who are you going to believe, the crappy misogynist jock, or the troubled girl, the outcast, hanging with the coven? Like, who are you going to believe? But this leads to another thing. Like, did Chris have to die? Like, did Chris have to go out like that? Because, I don't know, it just seemed like to me the retaliation was a bit, extreme, a bit big reaction to what was going on. Like, Chris possibly could have tried to advance himself onto her because of the spell. They didn't think about that. Sadly, in real life it happens, spell or not. Some men feel that they could advance themselves onto women, and that they have the right to hearsay to do what they want. So, you know, we see with the craft, with their craft, Nancy's and Sarah's craft, to tame these young boys into like submission and to pretty much expel them when they fall short. For Nancy, I feel like her ending Chris's life has to do with like bringing justice towards other girls that he may have been sloppy with, may have been disparaging towards. That's why I feel like with Nancy, yes, she was getting too big for her britches, getting too big headed, but she's just not using her craft for the heck of it. She's using it for some legislative, some justice towards people and all the girls, you know, who wronged them, especially when it comes to the treatment of women. And on a darker note, with her stepfather, for the fact that he had the nerve to look underneath her dress and to create, you know, a dysfunctional household until that scene is pretty disgusting. The fact that Nancy had to use paganism to solve, you know, her misogynist problems is something to entail. Like I said, I didn't have no business watching it because of, you know, the content and whatnot, but The Craft is one of the best films, has one of the best fashion, the best music, the best relatable plotline in terms of 90s teenage films. The 90s into the 80s, but for me being a 90s kid, that decade was pretty home to teenage film, the telling of young adulthood and the problems surrounding it. I don't know, are you going to watch The Craft Legacy? Because I'm not. Hollywood needs to be more original with their content. I'm pretty tired of seeing reboots. So thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you next time.